Welcome back to the Wizard Shop, and we're going to be doing the second half of the Wizard Tips installment. If you haven't seen the first 5 tips, you want to go watch that video first. This one will be 6 through 10. Let's go ahead and get started. So Wizard tip number 6 is a bad bearing. You hear a noise on the front of your motor. It's like something's wrong, or a bad grinding noise. Is it a pulley, or is it the alternator? Which one is it? I don't want to pull the whole thing apart to figure it out. With the same stethoscope we just used a minute ago, if you have one of these or you purchased one already, we can also use this to figure out where's the noise coming from. I'm not going to start the engine. I'm just going to demonstrate. But you want to be careful when the engine's running with this, because you can get it in the fan, you can get it wrapped up, you could hurt yourself. So be careful with this. So let's go ahead and demonstrate here. So you can test many things more than just a tensioner pulley. I've actually tested AC compressors. There's bearings inside of this. When you go to test these, you don't test it with the spinning belt and hurt yourself, or actually on the spinning pulley. You don't do that. That's crazy. You test the non-moving part right behind it, right here. You push on it. And it should be smooth. It should be quiet. But if you hear it going, and it's really loud, you'll know when you hear it. It's very likely the bearing right behind here has gone bad. Another test you can do is on a idler or tensioner pulley, just like this one down here. Like I said a minute ago, don't put it on the pulley itself. That's not what we're testing. Put it on the bolt that holds it on. And remember, be careful. Don't rub it on moving parts. It'll hurt your ears. Actually, put it on the bolt and listen. Or you can put it on all kinds of bolts, like this one or this one. And it'll help you kind of track down where is the noise getting louder. As I move down to these different bolts, it's getting louder and louder. And you're starting to get down to this pulley, and you're like, oh, there it is. I use these bolts a lot. I'll go from here to here to here. And you notice, oh my goodness, it's getting so loud down here. You can also use it on an alternator. Let's take a look. Again, while the engine's running, you don't put it in here and chop it up. Be very careful. Put it on the bolt, or on this bolt, on the case of the alternator, and you'll hear like a really loud bearing noise. You'll say, oh wow, the alternator bearings are bad. That's what's going on. And again, we're not putting it down through here. Again, I want to stress safety. You'll need to be careful when you're around moving parts. You could get hurt. I use this tool so much. I check injectors, I check bearings, I can check for suspension components that might be a little bit loose. You can use this on wheel bearings. If you have a lift, you can put the car up in the air and spin the wheels and drive and listen for a wheel bearing making noise. A good bearing should be a very quiet, like water running, like you barely hear anything. But if you hear, you'll know when you hear it, you'll be like, oh, that's where it's at. So once the engine's running, if you don't have one of these, it's not going to be very easy to find. You really need to get one of these. In like literally 30 seconds or a minute, you can find out exactly the thing that needs to be replaced and move on to actually replacing it, not spending time guessing. Wizard tip number 7 is you go to crank your car, and as soon as you turn the key to start it, everything goes dead. All the lights, everything just goes completely black, dead. You're like, oh great, I'm going to have to get a new battery or ignition switch, or something went wrong. I actually had that happen to Grandma a couple weeks ago, and it wasn't that problem at all. If you look, the light's on. It's got a good battery, it's got good connection, right? Let me go turn the key and see what happens. Dead. Nothing. Let me show you why. Battery connections. Watch what happens when I tighten it or push it down. It came alive. That's all it was. You'd be surprised how many times that a customer has towed a vehicle to me and spent $200 in towing. and I push the connection down, and it fires right up instantly. And they're like, oh my God, I just spent $200 for that? Yes, you did. You can open the hood and wiggle the battery connections or try to push them down. That might get you back in business. Make sure you check that first. Let me show you another instance. You guys have all come across these batteries that have side posts on them, and they go to the side just like this. And I've had the same issue where the car won't start, everything goes black dead, and you come out here and just wiggle the connector like this, and everything comes alive. These are notorious for doing that, the GM side terminals. You have to take it off, sand it and clean it, and then put it back on and make sure it's nice and tight. Not so tight where you strip the threads in the battery. Remember, they're made out of lead, but nice and snug and tight. I've had, again, people tow their cars in, gets here to the shop, and I wiggle the GM style connector. It comes back to life.
Okay, Car Wizard. I've heard about like pouring pop on the connectors can help.
That's something you can do if you see a lot of green corrosion all over your battery. That can help, but I typically like to manually clean them with a wire brush or sandpaper or something. So keep that in mind. If you're not mechanically inclined, you go to start your car and everything goes dead, go out to the battery and try to wiggle the connections. It might buy you some time and at least get you home. That's a really good wizard tip. It could save you a lot of trouble. Let's move on to wizard tip number 8. We're getting close. We're almost done. So the next thing we're going to check is wizard tip number 8, and that being that you go to start your car, it's nice and warmed up, and you turn on the heater on a cold day and you're not getting any heat. There's a few things to check. You can open your hood and kind of get an idea of what's going on. Number 1 is your coolant level. Is it full? If your engine's nice and hot and warmed up, you don't want to open your radiator at that point. You could get sprayed with really hot coolant in your face. So be careful with that. But when the engine's cooled down, check your coolant level. It might be low. If it's not, it could be a clogged heater core. You say, well, how do you test that? It's really easy, guys. With your car on, up to full operating temperature, and you have the temperature dial on your heater turned to all the way hot, you come out and look for these heater hoses. You can see there's 2 of them here, and they're going to be hoses that go to the firewall. You see they go up there to the firewall? See them there, guys? That goes directly to the heater core. That's what those 2 connections are up there, is actually the heater core. On a good working heater core, both hoses should be very hot, because hot coolant is going in, it's going through the heater core and coming back to the engine. On a nice flowing heater core, both hoses will be hot. If you go to grab one and it's hot, and the other one's ice cold, there's no flow going through the heater core. You might need to flush the heater core, you might need to replace it. That'll be something your mechanic, your local car buddy might know to check into it. But that's a very quick check. Is my heater core blocked up? Is it clogged? Is that the problem? That can tell you right away really fast. The next thing to check, especially on an early 2000s vehicle, where you go hot and cold, is cable operated. Move that back and forth several times. It might be stuck, and see if it gives you any heat. The last thing it could be is a temperature actuator inside the dash. Modern cars, newer cars, are little electric motors, just like the picture here. They're inside the dash. There's not much you can do at home. You're going to have to take it to a shop to check that out. But at least you can find out, is your heater core clogged, by that quick check right there. Let's move on to wizard tip number 9. So you have an engine that's overheating on you, and the question is it just simply a bad thermostat? There's a real simple check to find out. When the engine's starting to get hot, or even normal operating temperature, but especially if it's starting to get hot, just like we did on the heater core, you can take your hands and put them on the hoses, the radiator hoses, the main hoses. There's going to be an upper hose and a lower hose. It doesn't matter if it has side tanks or upper and lower tanks. It's always going to output the hot water to the upper level of the radiator and pull coolant out of the radiator back into the engine at the bottom. So while it's running, you put your hand on the main radiator hose going to the top of the radiator, and you're like, that's hot. If the engine's overheating and it's not a thermostat, so should be the other hose on the radiator, which is down here on this car. So you can see my hand touching the lower radiator hose. That one should be hot as well if the thermostat's working. It could be your radiator's partially clogged or something else is going on. So if you check the bottom radiator hose and it's ice cold or pretty cool, there's only two reasons why. The thermostat is not opening, or the radiator is 100% blocked and clogged. So if your engine's overheating, all the hoses should be really hot. But if you get a nice cold one on the other side of the radiator, it's because there's no flow. Why isn't there any flow? Because the thermostat's not opening, or the radiator itself is completely blocked up and clogged. Now make sure at the first portion of this test, like I said, make sure your coolant is nice and full. That could be the total cause of the issue. But if your coolant's full, the engine's overheating, and you still have an ice cold hose on the other side of the radiator, check your thermostat or your radiator. That's probably your problem. Let's move on to wizard tip number 10. So the last wizard tip we're going to give is that you have a battery drain. Whenever you leave your car set overnight or a couple, 3 days, you come back and it's completely dead. It could be just a bad battery, but if it's not, there's a few things you can do to check and see what's going on. I've had this happen several times, and people bring me a car and they're like, I don't know what it is. Something is draining my battery. Make sure you check all of your cigarette lighter power outlets in your car for car chargers, USB chargers, phone chargers, any accessory that plugs into those, because they can go bad and drain your battery flat.
Yeah, Car Wizard, remember we had that aftermarket radio that had a Bluetooth connection to it?
Yep, and the connection would stay on and kill the battery.
Yep.
And I've actually had these issues happen in the shop. I find out it's an accessory they have plugged in, and I call them up and they're like, no, that's not it, Car Wizard. I'm like, yes. I unplugged it and it's been sitting for 3 days and it starts right up. And they're like, you're kidding me. That's all it was? Make sure you check that to save some money. So it's not in the shop for 3 days and all it was a USB charger. But if that's not the case and you still can't figure out what's wrong, this particular problem can even defeat the best of mechanics. But I have been able to do really well with them, and let me show you how. The first thing you're going to need is some sort of an ammeter, something that measures amps, up to about 10 amps. You can use a voltmeter that measures amps. I'm actually going to use an old Snap-on Vantage that I have that measures amps. What we're going to do is disconnect the negative terminal to the battery. We're going to run all the power of the car through the ammeter. Now, while we do this, you don't want to turn on your headlights or start your car or do something crazy, because you're going to run all that power through your test equipment and blow it up, blow the fuse or possibly damage it. While we're doing this test, we don't start the car, we don't turn on the headlights, we don't do anything crazy. So I'll go ahead and get it hooked up and I'll show you guys what it looks like. So we'll go ahead and turn on our ammeter. This is actually a oscilloscope and many other things, but we'll go to multimeter, change it to 5 amps. Now, as you can see on the battery, we have the negative terminal disconnected. We want to measure the power between the two, and we'll never be able to measure that if we hook them together. So I've got just some simple mechanics wire here to hook to the battery terminal, and we'll hook the other end of our ammeter to the actual terminal there. Now you can see half an amp, 0.6 of an amp, is being pulled through the car right now. If in a car that's got a drain or something's wrong, you'll see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 amps. I'll go open the door and turn on the dome light, and you can see and can watch this number rise. Now we're pulling 1.6 amps. So let's pretend that the dome light is causing the issue with this car and it's not shutting off. We're not sure, is that the problem, what's going on? So now we've got everything hooked up just like I showed you. You want to let the car sit for a while, for 20 or 30 minutes, to let all the computers go to sleep. You should see like 0.100 amps or less, maybe even 0.05. That's a healthy car that's gone to sleep properly. If you see 0.500 or 1.6 like we have here, that's a pretty big drain and it's going to kill your battery overnight. The next step is we start pulling fuses. Now I already know which one we're going to pull and you're going to see the change, but if you don't know, you won't know until you just start pulling fuses. So we have the dome light on simulating a drain. I'm going to pretend like I'm pulling fuses and we're going to see what happens on our ammeter. So right now we're pulling 1.6 amps. Something is draining this battery. What is it? What could it be? So we start pulling fuses. Did that fix it, Mrs. Wizard?
Nope.
Nope, it's not that circuit. How about this one? Did that fix it?
Nope.
No, it's not on that circuit. How about this one? Let's try this one.
Yes.
There we go. Now I know out of all the 50 or 60 different circuits on this car, I know exactly where the drain is. And I mean exactly where the drain is coming from. The dome light. It's not shutting off. And we hook the fuse back in. There's our draw again. I've had to do that on many cars. I have to pull fuses and fuses. I have a faster way, and I'm going to show it to you just real quick. But this is what you can do at home without buying a whole bunch of equipment. Now let me hook the battery back up. Let me show you this last tool, and that'll wrap it up. So this is called an amp hound. I think it was 80 bucks or $100 or something like that. But we don't have to disconnect the battery, do anything crazy. We just turn it on. And it has multiple different tips that are the shape of, guess what? Fuses. We go to our fuse box and we start measuring the fuses. On modern fuses, ATC style fuses, the little tiny metal terminals are accessible through the top of the fuse. That's what these little needles are going to be touching. So we can just go down the row. Nothing there. Nothing there. Nothing there. What's it show, Mrs. Wizard?
0.65.
So that's pulling 0.65 of an amp. There's probably multiple other circuits that are running right now because I have the door open to simulate a draw. But this tool right here, you can go right down the fuse box to each individual circuit. And when it goes beep, 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 you found it. Anything over about 0.100 or so is going to beep on this thing and say, hey, I found a large draw. So this kind of a problem can drive many people insane. But I have found ways to not make it insane. We can either test it by pulling fuses or with an amp hound. So I'm glad you guys could follow along on another Wizard Tips video. Hopefully you guys can use some of these tips and save you a lot of time, save you a lot of money. A lot of these things I showed you today are on previous Wizard Tip videos. This is things I do every day of the week. This stuff is constantly running through the shop. I have my guys do most of the work, but as far as diagnosis, I still do a lot of the diagnosis. I do all these same things I just showed you. That's how I find the problem. Every day I'm doing this stuff all the time. So that's how I find out what's wrong in my shop. Again, you can check the Amazon affiliates link. All these tools we just used and so much more are there for sale. You click the link in the description below for the Amazon affiliates page. If someone's curious what they want to get you, or if you're giving some ideas what they can get you, you can also get them for stocking stuffers or various different other things for people. If you haven't hit the subscribe button, I really recommend you do that now. There's a lot of cool projects to come. Thanks for watching.